What's going on, hockey fans? This is episode 111 of the Clappercast. I'm Burke. Sean, how's it going?
Just over here getting hyped because it's World Junior Classic time, y'all.
Oh, man. The best time of the year, truly.
The best tournament, some of the best hockey we will ever watch is out of this tournament, so it's exciting to see it starting in the pre-tournament stuff in 2 days. We're recording this on the 21st, so obviously it's time for a preview for the tournament.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it that much aside from there's a few kids that were expected to make Team Canada that ended up not being selected, but aside from that, it looks like a pretty gross team, so...
Yeah, it's kind of one of those teams that's basically the default gold medal pick. Like, if they don't win with this team, then they've really screwed up. It seems to be one of those years again, which obviously is great because now it's going to put a ton of expectations on it, so anything short of an absolute blowout win is going to be a disappointment.
Yeah, it has a recent history, I guess, has been a bit of a heartbreak for Team Canada, or not the most recent, but it's been tough in the last few years for Team Canada. There's been a lot of tough losses, so yeah.
I think this is a testament to the other countries getting better at hockey. Like, we've seen a huge upturn in the teams that the USA is icing. They've got a ton of great prospects over the last few seasons entering the NHL draft and getting into the NHL, and this year is no different. They've got a lot of good players coming up.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I mean, me and you went to an exhibition game, I guess, a couple of years ago now, for the tournament, and that was cool because we saw Martin Ferraveri play, and he's kind of making his introduction to the league right now. So
So you were watching him closely in that game, and he was pretty solid back then in that tournament. So it's cool to watch the progression over a few years.
Yeah, he was the captain of Team Slovakia for that tournament, and yeah, he's looked really good this year. He's playing on the top pairing with Carlson and hasn't looked out of place, and he's been getting ragdolled and stuff by everybody. But
the new Capitals Penguins rivalry is going to be Ferravari versus someone else.
Yeah, I mean, the first game he got ragdolled by Crosby, and the second game he got hit in the head. So it's interesting. But yeah, the tournament is super super cool. It's always neat to look back at the tournaments, of the past and see, like, oh man, this kid was on that team. I didn't even realize that. And like late bloomers and some of the studs that are in that tournament never pan out. And it's just such a cool time to watch all these prospects play against each other and just follow their careers from here, really. So totally. I'm excited about it, and the national pride too. So it's the Boxing Day tradition, so I'm excited to make it happen. I've got to see some family this year, and the family of my girlfriend, so I'm a little worried I might miss some of the games. So
gonna have the phone on in the background, just kind of peeking down every once in a while.
Yeah, I might have to stream it off my phone. So we'll make it happen one way or another. But I don't know. Is there any prospects that you're kind of keeping an eye on at all in this tournament?
Well, yeah, I kind of looked at a few of the teams' rosters. So, I mean, we'll obviously start with Team Canada. You mentioned a few notable omissions where we have Luke Evangelista, Hendrix Lapierre, and it's Carter Savoie, right? That's getting drafted.
Yeah.
Getting drafted. Okay. They were all left off the team. Brant Clark was not even selected for the selection tournament, which is it's questionable in the analysis side of things because I don't think Canada has a right-handed defenseman at this point.
Ooh,
he would have been the only one, which is kind of a weird setup for your defense where they're all left shot. But it looks like they're going heavy on players who are already drafted. There's only 3 undrafted players, and 2 of them are Connor Bedard and Shane Wright. So those are future number 1 overall picks basically. So they're going heavy on already drafted players, guys who are older, more experienced. So we're going to see a more fleshed out roster, I guess, a stronger roster in that regard.
Yeah. One that I'm kind of disappointed about is Hendrix Lapierre. Didn't make the team, and he has played for the Capitals this season, and I don't know, just sucks that he didn't make it. But I mean, it's Team Canada is going to be good, whatever roster they end up with. So, just a little disappointed in that one. But I don't think the Capitals have any players. I mean, there might be some like Czech guys or something, but I'm not aware of any players that are in the tournament for them. But so it might be kind of a fun time to just not be so invested in one player. Like,
you'll kind of be free to watch whatever.
Yeah, like, when Connor McMichael was in it, I was really pulling for him, and he did really well. But this year, it's just going to be, go Canada, I guess.
Yeah. Looking over at Russia's roster this tournament, too. It was interesting. They don't have any players who are currently in North America. They went entirely with the team already playing in Russia. Sergei Zubov, the GM, said players who have been training with us in Russia are stronger defensively. So they're going with I'm assuming players who have pre-built chemistry or who are already parts of the, more ingrained in the Russian hockey development system, rather than guys who went over to North America earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, like, you see, like, Team Finland, like, they always seem to, like, do the same thing almost, or, like, not, like, always players that are in Finland, but, like, some of their choices kind of seem like they don't make sense, but then, like, their team does really well because they've got, like, guys that play well together, and so it really works. So I'm interested to see how that pans out for Russia, because I'm sure that there's some good players that are playing in the CHL or something.
There's a couple that there were a couple notable omissions. I can't remember their names, but a couple of guys who were in the CHL or whatever who got left off.
I mean, especially and with like COVID and stuff, it kind of makes sense to just draw from like one place so that there's not like, I don't know, quarantine and travel issues and I don't know. It just seems like a more it's a conservative approach, I guess, but it seems like it might be warranted, especially with Omicron right now. I mean, wreaking havoc on the NHL. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing with their roster is they seem to have a smaller forward group than other teams, where only 4 of their forwards are over 6 foot tall. A lot of them are 5'10", listed at 5'10". So we know what that means in hockey terms.
Yeah.
The overall team is about the same average height as every other World Juniors team. It's just those forwards seem to stand out as a bit smaller. So we'll see how that pans out against some of the other teams, if they've got bigger defense or, the bigger, stronger forwards of like Canada, for example, if they're older.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they get bashed around or not. But
yeah, if they've got the agility and the speed, the quickness to navigate around all that.
Just took a quick peek at Finland's roster, and yes, Brad Lambert returning the tournament. Love it.
The prototypical Finn.
Yeah. The best Finnish name of all time,
yeah.
Brad Lambert.
Well, you mentioned Finland here. Jump over to them. Their roster is extremely strong once again. They've got a really great lineup defensively and in net. The question mark for me watching them is they might have a bit of trouble scoring, especially with Aatu Räty is not able to make the tournament, and Anton Lundell graduated up to the NHL. So their forward group might be a little bit weaker, but we'll see who steps up, because that's going to give a couple of roster spots for some other guys who might have been pushed down the lineup otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some big names for them graduating on, so it might be the Brad Lambert show. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Finland is usually they're usually a surprise, so it wouldn't surprise me if they did extremely well.
Yeah. And the last note, for going back to Russia for just a second, the last note is just they've got Yaroslav Vasquez back in net again. So, the biggest question for him is whether or not his stick's going to make an appearance, and if he already yeeted it over to another rink.
Probably, yeah.
We'll see if the Askarov stick Twitter account gets to make a reappearance this tournament.
I hope so.
Ray Ferraro's intensifying already.
Yeah, he's getting that.
Sweden's going to be incredibly fun to watch this tournament. They have a great group of forwards. They've got William Eklund, Fabian Lysell.
I'm not sure.
Lifestyle Boston Bruins prospect Alexander Holtz headlining their tournament group, their forward group. It's going to be so fun to watch those guys. The offensive talent on that roster is going to be great.
Yeah, Holtz is supposed to be just amazing. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Did the Sweden still have the streak going? Or did they lose that last year?
They lost last year in round robin, I think. So that's done.
That actually might help them. Like they've been so good in the round robin and everything, and then they get to the playoff rounds and they just suck. So
which might be an issue for them because they've got almost an entirely new defense coming into this tournament over last year. So they don't have a whole lot of experience there, and a lot of their better guys like Captain Philip Broberg graduated up to the professional leagues. They're not getting him back, and it's all new guys. So going up against some of the stronger, talented forward groups like Russia, Canada, and the U.S., if they end up against them later on in the tournament, that could be tough.
Yeah, they've had that group of defensemen for a little bit there, so we'll see. I mean, Sweden is just always seems to be really good, so we'll see. But looks like they got quite a few drafted guys on their team. I wonder if Jesper Wallstedt is gonna play a lot, or
I think he slots in as their number one goalie at this point.
They've got two Jespers, and then Callie Klang, which is also a cool name. Jesper Wallstedt, Jesper Wickman, Callie Klang. Yeah,
good stuff. winning the name game in net.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I haven't been paying attention that much to pick a favorite, but I think it might be just nice for me personally to just go for Canada and not have to root for specific players for once. It'll be nice.
Exactly, yeah. Some more less focused watching, so you can just pay attention to whoever stands out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I always try and keep an eye on that guy's this guy's pick, or this Capitals guy or whatever. Don't really have that issue this year.
Exactly. And the last major competitive team is going to be the U.S., and they just straight up have a strong roster. They've got some of the better prospects, like Jake Sanderson is going to be amazing on their defense. This most recent draft number 2 pick, Matty Beniers, leading it forward. They've got such a strong prospect pool. They've been taking
Luke
over
Hughes.
the high end. Yeah, Luke Hughes, can't forget him. They've got such a strong prospect pool coming up. They've been slowly creeping up the top 10 draft picks in the NHL drafts and some of the better prospects in the league. So it's creating a really strong, and it's recreating a very strong rivalry with Canada, especially as Russia, Finland, and Sweden all get better as well. It's just really increasing the competition in this tournament. So it's going to be fun to watch and see if we get another rematch between Canada and the U.S. in the final. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the classic matchup, so it'd be kind of cool
Exactly.
to see it happen again. But yeah, they have an extremely strong team, so they've only got a handful of guys, four players, it looks like, that haven't been drafted. So that's going to be a strong team. And yeah, their defense is looking good. So yeah, look out for USA as always.
Yes. So I guess the big news moving over to the NHL is what's ending up being a 2-day extra pause on the Christmas break due to a sixth of the league is in COVID protocol, and pretty much every team has at least 1 or 2 people out right now.
Yeah, it seems pretty rough. I know, just managing fantasy hockey teams, it's between a third and a half of my team in each league is just out on protocol, basically.
Yeah.
So
and that's a testament to the impact that all of this is having on the league. And you don't want to lose games, but you look at the rosters that teams are going to have to ice, and it's the NHL putting out half of its product in a game is just not really great either when half a team's roster is out and they're using random minor leaguers and scratches on the first line because they don't have anyone else to fill in. You kind of feel bad for Ottawa and San Jose and the Islanders earlier in this season when they had to deal with it on their own.
Yeah.
Got no help, which, hindsight. But, now once every other team is affected at once, suddenly it's like, okay, well, most of the league is currently affected. We can't actually ice a decent product, so guess we'll postpone an extra 2 games.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it does suck for those teams that had to be on their own for it. But yeah, I think it was like Nick Cousins or something like last week was saying like they need to postpone all the games, and then what do you know, they end up having to do that.
Except they did it way later than most people were calling for it, and they also did it after individually postponing 99% of the games.
Yeah, it's well, and then there's that rumor that players won't be going to the Olympics too.
It sounds like that's more or less confirmed without an official announcement that the league is going to plan on using that. Basically, they had 3 weeks off in February between the All-Star break and the Olympic break. And they're going to use that to reschedule as many of these games as possible, doing what they can with arena availability.
Yeah. It just looks like the Olympics just isn't.
Yeah.
It's worth going to.
No, not this time. It sucks because, obviously we were really looking forward to watching, best on best in the Olympics again.
China versus Canada.
Yeah. Can't miss that matchup. I was actually looking forward to that matchup to see how bad it got.
Oh man, probably watch 5 minutes of it and be like, I can't watch.
Can't watch. This hurts.
Mercy.
But yeah, it sucks to not be able to see that. But from a player perspective, you go over there and you risk being stuck in China for upwards of 5 weeks in quarantine, and then you've got the teams who are then sending their best players away with that risk in mind as they're trying to be in a playoff race. Like Edmonton sending McDavid and Draisaitl over there. Well, what happens if they get stuck in China for extra time and they miss, 2 or 3 weeks of the playoff race?
Yeah,
that basically takes them out of the race.
Not to get too political here, but who on the Olympic committee? How did they decide that China was a good location for this? For the Olympics? Yeah, exactly. They're so corrupt. But it's let's go to one of the most densely populated places in the middle of a pandemic.
the location was decided on well before.
I know, but it's like Tokyo. They had to.
Or you mean to reschedule?
Yeah, why didn't they just say, okay, China, you can have it the next time, but we'll have it in a more secluded, safe space. I don't know. It just seemed like such a weird. They'll go
to a random mountain in the middle of British Columbia.
Yeah, it's like the Kokanee rink, they used to have those commercials, up in the middle of nowhere playing hockey. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I digress here, but yeah, the COVID situation, it seems like there's a lot of players on protocol, but then did you see the Steve Yzerman interview where he was basically? Did you see that?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw obviously the main quote that came out of it.
Yeah, so essentially his point was why do we even test when the positive tests are non-symptomatic and players want to play?
Yeah. So, I can see the point because it's the rest of us go about our day-to-day lives not getting tested unless we're symptomatic. So it's okay, so you just want to be treated like a normal person. But then you also kind of factor in, these players are traveling multiple times a week in so many different cities, interacting with so many different people in buildings with poor ventilation. It's kind of a public and, organizational safety risk to have that going on when you're basically going to be contributing to an outbreak. And then you also have to factor in, we're only going to test if symptomatic. Well, okay, so we know how hockey players deal with injuries. we know how they're gonna say, oh, I don't have a sore throat. They're just gonna ignore it and keep going because they don't want to have to miss a game. We see that with other injuries. Well, who's to say it won't happen with this? It's not. You can't leave it up to the players to decide if they're going to get tested.
Yeah, it's the employer's decision that's the safety protocol.
Yeah.
However, I do see his point where it's like if someone's non-symptomatic, it sucks. They can't play because like they
I think that it's the whole thing with COVID where you can still spread it if you're non-symptomatic.
Yeah.
So it's like you might be okay, but the guy you give it to might not be.
Yeah, and it's like just because you are asymptomatic doesn't mean the person that you give it to won't have symptoms.
Yeah.
But with Omicron, though, it seems like, well, at least the very initial things I've been reading here have been saying like, the symptoms are very much like a common cold, and so it's very mild, which is good. So if anyone, like, I don't know the percentage of players right now in protocol that do have that variant, or if that's public knowledge or anything, but it seems like it's a very more mild version of the virus. So
yeah, that'd be nice. I obviously still waiting for official medical confirmation on that type of thing, but it'd be nice if it was.
Yeah, so it's like it's very very contagious, so that's why
it's still a risk,
or it could be why we're having this kind of outbreak in the league right now, is because it is very very contagious. But when you do get it, the chances of you having mild symptoms or no symptoms is very very high. So that's good because it means that like everyone who has it right now is probably fine. There's less serious cases like the Canucks last season where it's like, they were just devastated by it.
Well, did you see? I think it was Horvat this morning actually said they're not getting hit as hard by it this time after they've all had their vaccines, after getting through all that. This time compared to last time, it's been a lot easier for them.
Yeah, which is good because it's just milder. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but from what I've read, it's like this could be like what COVID is permanently. It's something like this, where it's like very contagious, very mild. It's just around. It's just a virus that's around, and they might be like an annual shot that you can get, like a flu vaccine or something.
Yeah.
That might be like the end of COVID. Like the pandemic at least, but COVID might stick around in this kind of form like this. But yeah, anyway, like to get back to hockey, it's a well needed break so that teams can get their people back, because like you said, nobody wants to go to a game and see one of the big guys there instead of 12 or whatever. Like the Capitals had one of their top 6 players in their game 2 days ago or whatever. They had Ovechkin, which is not surprising that Ovechkin was there, but they didn't have Backstrom, they didn't have Kuznetsov. They were both in protocol. Oshie was in protocol. Math is hurt, but it's like teams have one of their top 6. Like that's not it's not fun to watch.
It's not fun. Not to mention it kind of hits the integrity of the standings when it's like teams are missing like half of their roster. Like it could obviously happen if a team gets really really injured for a bit in general, but it defeats a little bit of the fun of watching that when it's just
and like there's teams that do really well with that. Like the Capitals, I think, have managed to deal with that really well all year.
Senators
specifically
did okay
COVID
too.
Related. Like the Capitals are, I don't know, top 5 of the league or something points wise, and they played I think a few more games than a couple of teams. But like the injuries they've had this year, they've done really well.
Yeah.
But there's teams that don't do well with that because they don't have a system that they need their best guys, and if they don't have them, it sucks. And it is an unfair situation to make them play, which is to your point earlier when the Islanders and I think Sharks had to deal with it earlier in the season. It's unfair because they had their best guys out and still had to play. Like it sucks. But I guess that's kind of the reality now of this pandemic hockey. Sometimes it'll be one or two teams, and sometimes it'll be the whole league. So I know that the league's probably reluctant to do that, but they had to in this case, or have to. There's one more game today that needs to be postponed.
And it's looking like I haven't seen any confirmation that it's actually going to happen, because Saravalli tweeted earlier this morning that it was in jeopardy because they're anticipating, more players from either Tampa or Vegas being added to protocol.
Yeah.
So it's like they go and individually postpone 50 games and then announce a pause for the last 3 games, and then all of those games get postponed individually as well, except for Dallas and Minnesota last night.
Bizarro, just the way that they've done things.
Just a bit. Just a little bit.
Just give everyone the extra days off. Let them isolate at home and see their families, and just give them the Christmas week off. At least it's not like the freaking NBA where they schedule games on Christmas. I don't understand why they ever need to do that.
I've never been a fan of that one. It's just like I'm assuming their mentality is that everyone's at home and nothing else is on, but it's just like, why do you have to schedule the date?
How does the players union not shut that down? I don't understand that. I don't know, any other sports league or industry wanted to do that, it would be super expensive. I wonder if they get stat pay. I don't know. It just seems like who wants to do that anyway. I'm glad that the league is shutting these games down, because it needs to happen, and there needs to be kind of a reset, I think, going into the new year.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is just to reset, let all the players get back into the roster, and just kind of...
Let us watch World Juniors in peace, NHL.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't want to have conflicting times. I have enough of that during the regular season. I don't need it conflict with other hockey. Anyway, one good thing that I saw out of this break, aside from players getting back to health, was the Canucks. You mentioned Bo Horvat, mentioning that it's easier this time around, and another thing from the Canucks is Bruce Boudreau is going to take this time off to kind of develop some more relationships and chemistry with the players on the Canucks roster, because he hasn't been there very long, but they've won 6 in a row since he's started, he's the first coach ever to do that in the Canucks history. We'll see how long it goes for. I don't know how many games they have left, but maybe they'll never lose again. But it's just, I don't know, one kind of interesting benefits. You get your games delayed, you get a bit more practice time or whatever, for the players that are not in protocol. You get to actually work on a few things. So that's kind of interesting to see them take advantage of the time like that.
Yeah, and it's really good just to see the team bounce back and respond the way they have. Looking specifically at someone like Brock Besser, one of their main scorers who had just been completely stifled, completely cold for a while. Bruce comes in, gets the team rejuvenated, gets energetic, and look, he's scoring again. He's doing what he's there to do. Just there's a new energy around the team. The coolest thing is seeing, the fans are back into it too. Chanting Bruce, there it is, or Bruce, there he is, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a better energy. It's just a better environment around the team, instead of just completely hopeless, checked out, defeated. From the players and from the fans.
Yeah, they've really climbed back into it. They're 1 point behind the Sharks with one more game played. They're kind of, I don't know if they're gonna make playoffs, but they're more relevant now than they were. They've really kind of made their record look a little bit more I don't know, respectable like than it was.
Yeah, they're closer to a 500 team at 14, 15, and 2 now.
Yeah, like that's a little bit more respectable than
that's
than,
just
I guess,
a normal bad team.
8, 15, and 2
Yeah.
than they were before.
That's just a normal bad team. It's nothing too bad.
Yeah, they're not like Coyotes 6, 21, and 2. But they were close. They could have.
Pretty much. Pretty close. Imagine if they had gone through their normal trajectory in those 6 games instead, where it'd be, like 9, 20, and 2, something like that. They'd be right down there.
Yeah, and during those 6 games, like they had a good comeback. I think it was against Minnesota or something.
I want to say Columbus. They were down 3.
Yeah, it was Columbus. Yeah.
I think they were down 3, and then they won 4-3, and was it regulation?
Yeah, I think Bo Horvath got the winner in that one. Yeah. But yeah, they've I mean, like we were talking about, like their penalty kill, who was even on it. He's been using like Quinn Hughes, Pedersen on the PK. And like there's like I think it's like his first week there, but like Quinn Hughes was talking about like, everyone talks about how I'm so bad defensively, but it's an area of my game I want to work on, and Burke's is going to give me the opportunity to work on it. So it's like, become a more rounded player.
Which is a bit of a different approach from what you normally see, where the guys who need to work on stuff don't get the opportunity to do so. So to see, Bruce immediately come in and, give the players his confidence that they can handle this situation, that they could work on it, that they can learn and grow in game time rather than off ice in practice, that it's such a, it's got to be a great confidence booster for the guys, for the players who had been struggling with that beforehand.
Yeah, and it's like you want your best players out there in every situation. And like in the end of the game, like if you need like a defensive zone win or something, like you want to be able to put like a guy like Pedersen out there. I know he sucks at faceoffs, but like that's something they need to work on. But like you want that guy out there, right? Like to be able to be there. You want the big guys in the big moments. That's what they want. And if you don't put them out there, then they don't think that you as a coach trust them, and then that builds a wall. So it's like you need to put them in there. And then like you look at like teams like Boston, where like their PK is like Bergeron and Marchand. It's like that's a scoring threat. Like how many times have they got shorthanded goals? Like the Canucks may have gotten a few shorties, like I don't know, like Mott like last season or something, but like Pedersen and Hughes out there, like that's a legitimate threat if they can get it out of the zone and make a pass or something.
And it's a mind games thing too for the team on the power play, where it's like, oh, there's scoring threats out there. We might actually have to keep defense in mind instead of just all out offense.
Yeah, and
it's a mind game strategy thing as well.
Get to build the confidence of those young players that even if you're not scoring or something, like you're helping the team, like you're more of a team player. Yeah. You're becoming a more rounded player that's not all about points. So yeah, it's like I think it's smart of Boudreau to do that. And I think they're in his very first press release or interview or whatever, he said that a player actually approached him about playing on the penalty kill, and all Canucks fans were like, "Oh, it must have been Hoglander," but I wonder if it was Hughes asking
that could be a thing
to be on it.
That could be a possibility because like you said, he had come out and said, "Well, I wanted to work on my defense. I wanted to be a more well-rounded player." Well, it would make sense if he is the one who was like, "Hey, can I get some PK time?"
Yeah, like
if he wants to work on that, because obviously, if a guy wants to work on something on some part of his game, a good coach isn't going to deny him the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's fun to see. It's always nice to see a team on a hot streak. So we'll see if they can stay hot after this mini break. And take the time to get a bit more acquainted.
Yeah, I guess the thing to keep in mind is, there is a 10 to 15 game like honeymoon period basically with a new coach where things turn around and then they kind of level off and regress a bit to whatever the new normal for the team is. So we'll see what happens, say, in 10 more games if they're still, well above 500 or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're trending in the right direction, but yeah, it's pretty early to tell. Like, just because they haven't lost in 6 games doesn't mean they'll never lose again. So, who knows? What did you want to move on to next?
Do you want to talk about those Trouba style hits that had happened?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So a different trend in over the last couple weeks is with these hits where guy skates in pretty fast, elbow shoulder tucked in, and hits a guy high who's looking the other way, not paying attention, head down, whatever. We've seen it, 4 key times over the last few weeks, and 3 the guys got stretchered off, I think. It was Jacob Trouba on Jujhar Khaira, then Trouba on McKinnon, then can't remember who it was on Florida, and then we saw it again with Brett Connolly on Tanner Kero a couple nights ago. The one on Tanner Kero was
Jacob McDonald or something, I think.
Okay.
Colorado got hit by.
Was it Lomberg?
Lomberg, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one on Kero was a bit different because it was a blatant interference. The guy, Kero didn't even have the puck. It was 4 feet up the boards, beside him. But it was kind of a similar lead up, a similar, hitting motion, I guess. But it's kind of like, what are your thoughts on those hits? Like, is it just an unfortunate sequence of events where they all happen at once, or is it like a trend of a hit that is going to need to be looked at more in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see, like, I don't know, 3 different types of hits here. I know there's 4, but like, to me, the Trouba on Khaira and I think Lomberg on, I think it was Jacob McDonald, I think, hits are kind of similar, where it's like a guy has the puck at a bit more speed, and someone comes like straight on and hits him. And there's, in both cases, they're players that have their head down and have put themselves in a vulnerable position by having their head down. And they get hit really hard, questionable, I think. I don't know. I've watched them and I can't tell like where the primary point of contact is on some of those. Like the Khaira one, like, does he get him in the head, or is it Khaira's head hitting the ice when he at what point was he out? I don't know, but
a lot of them look like they're targeted, like the main force is going through like the shoulder, but it's just because obviously you can't just like pinpoint where you're gonna hit. It ends up getting them in the jaw and the chin as well.
Yeah, like to me, like the Trouba ones, like his second one on McKinnon, I think is completely fine. Like I think that one's completely fine. It's just McKinnon at in the circle or the top of the circle, like trying to stick handle. He's got his head down, and Trouba just comes up and stands him up. McKinnon got up. He was okay. That was the one where there wasn't a scary scene afterwards. That one I think is completely fine, where it's like, he's in the middle of the ice stick handling. You got to expect to get hit there. Like, you're not going to come into the home plate area, as CBC likes to say. And then, like, Khaira's trying to skate it out of the zone at the blue line on the boards. Like, I mean, I haven't played, like, super competitive hockey, but, like, when I did play hitting, like, that's a dangerous spot to be. And you got to kind of know, like, you're at risk of getting hit. And then in the corner, the McDonald one, it's like that's a place where you're going to get hit as a defenseman. Like, you have to know that. So I think part of it's like, it's a really violent hit, but those are all 3 of those. I'll talk about the Khaira one in a second, but like all 3 of those ones, it's like those are bread and butter. You're going to get hit zones, right? Like corner for the D-man, half boards to the blue line for the winger, and then in the middle for a forward in the offensive zone. Like you're going to get hit there if there's a hitting defenseman out there. So I don't know. I think it's like maybe like there's a lot less of those types of hits now. There's gone are the days of like Scott Stevens flying across the ice to smoke someone with a dirty hit. Crossing from the right side over to the left side to hit someone.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a case of like guys aren't expecting it because there's less people that do it. There's more like Adam Fox type defensemen who like, play the angle and, maybe bring you into the boards a little bit and use their stick or something. Than there are like, Jacob Trouba's. But it's still part of the game. So I don't know. I just think it is crazy that they all happened within such a short time frame. But like, I don't know if a line was necessarily crossed, but it looks bad. I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think of like those hits? The Connolly one is, I think, the most egregious. Agree with the suspension. You got 4 games.
100%.
That guy has no, like, there's no way he needs to get hit there. Like, Radulov rings it, and like the puck goes by him, but at no point does he touch it, and his stick's not even on the ice.
Yeah. So that's like, going off what you said, that's not a place a player would have to expect to be hit. There's
like,
no reason to expect that.
They always use the term like hockey play or whatever, right? Like, that's not a hockey play.
No.
It's not. He doesn't need to get hit there. He's not expecting the hit. He shouldn't expect the hit. I think that's a really important distinction here. Caro should not have expected a hit there because he doesn't make an attempt to play the puck. And then he gets blindsided.
By someone who had the time to divert, let up, not make that hit.
He's like not, at no point is he eligible to be hit on that play. Whereas the other 3 are, and the other player makes an attempt to hit him, which is eligible, but the violence is something that we don't see every game in regular season.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the rule book's concerned, I don't see anything particularly wrong with them. The way it's written, the way it's enforced right now. Yes, they're, violent plays. Yes, they're unfortunate outcomes on players. But I think the way that the rule book is written and enforced at the moment, like, there's nothing particularly wrong with them. Now, saying that, like, I've in the past and still am leaning on the side of, player safety and caution in that regard. So, maybe to me it says, okay, so we've got out the egregious chicken wing elbows into the head and that type of headshot for the most part. Now do we start to try and crack down on just general head contact to reduce the risk of severe injury, severe head injury even further? So you look at a hit like that, and do you maybe want to say any head contact in general is a penalty? Is that something that's possible with the way NHL hitting happens?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's what minor hockey has been trying to do the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
It's like there's a specific head contact penalty, and even if it's unintentional head contact, it's a head contact penalty. And then I think if you get so many of those, this might vary province to province, but I think in BC hockey, it's like, you even like rough someone after the whistle and you make contact with their head, like with your hand or something. That's head contact. That's not roughing. That's head contact. Head contact roughing or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like a special penalty, and it's like, I don't think they'll ever do that in the NHL.
No.
Where it's like after you touch a guy's head at all, it's a penalty. But like on hits and stuff, it's like, yeah, if there's head contact, then they could make it a reviewable play. It could be either it gets looked at and there's some sort of suspension or fine or something, or it's an additional penalty. I think if you do the additional penalty, people would actually stop doing it more than if it was a fine or a suspension.
Yeah, because at a certain point, like, yes, the player has to expect a hit. They have to be aware of what's going on around them. You can't just put yourself in vulnerable position, turning your back against someone coming in on you on the boards or looking away from everything that's happening and not watching the play. But you also have to put some of the onus on the hitter to be like, okay, this guy's in a tricky spot. Maybe I should let up a bit. You don't have to go in full force. You kind of think like what they do in international hockey, I think, is more strict on that as well, even at the higher levels. Looking at, it's a different sport. The contact is different, so it's not totally comparable. But like rugby has a different process for following that, where they kind of review the play. They look at the extent of the head contact, the intention of it. Was it part of the hits? Was it, not necessary? Like a variety of different things like that factor into the, if it's penalizable or suspendable or cardable, like whatever they have over there. So if that type of hit keeps happening, if players keep getting hurt, then yeah, I would probably hope that the league and the players and then the PA and the player safety committee would crack down a little bit on that and kind of expand the head contact rule to catch more of even the accidental or the follow through type stuff.
Yeah, like I don't like. It's tough because like you look at the Kara one and his head's completely down. And Trouba does not he doesn't charge. He's not like flying into him. He doesn't leave his feet. Like it's a pretty clean hit. It's just it was vulnerable there. But like as a defenseman, like I even playing like beer league hockey, I wish that I could hit sometimes because what else can you do, right? Like it's like you just wave your stick at someone and they just go by you. And so it's like I wish I could hit so I could like at least like take them out of the play or I'm not gonna fucking rock somebody, but like at least
play the
like,
body a little bit better,
play the body a little bit more. Yeah, but it's like those are hard hits, and like I'm looking at the Kara one again, and it's like he doesn't come flying in at him. He just comes in off the blue line. He doesn't even he takes maybe like half a stride, and then just he's a big man, and Kara gets stood right up.
That was Brett Connolly, right? Did you say Caro or Kara?
Kara. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no.
The Trouba hit on Jujar.
Yeah,
like he's barely moving. Like he's just kind of coasting into him, and it's like Kara's head's down for a pretty significant amount of time, and then he just gets rocked. So it's
gets him high, and it's just the contact.
Yeah, it's just the contact, I guess, and just him hitting his head on the ice. But
because you're never going to get rid of all of the concussions in hockey because you
can
get
and
them
I
without
think,
touching your head.
I think it's just
minimizing.
It's a unfortunate week, and it's like I don't know what Trouba could have done differently there. It's like he doesn't drive up into him. He doesn't take his legs out or anything. He doesn't like. He could have been a lot worse. I think it's just Kara has concussion history, so maybe that plays into it too, right? Like he missed a lot of last season with a concussion.
Well,
should he have played again?
Yeah, like this is the third major concussion he's had in a year.
Yeah,
he got KO'd in a fight. Then he came back and on an innocent play he got hit by or tried to hit Romanov and gave himself another concussion. And then this one now he's knocked out again.
Yeah. I mean, Trouba's been hitting guys all left, right, and center, and he's getting a lot of fights because of it. But not every big hit's dirty, and I think his hits were. Maybe the Kara one, maybe a little questionable. I haven't seen anything that kind of have swayed my decision to be like that was dirty, but I think it's just unfortunate that
it's not a blatant head contact. There's no launching, there's no charging, there's no sticking out elbow. It's just the point of contact was higher up on the shoulder into the chin. So that's
and like that's the Rangers tried to do that this offseason, right? Like to get more physical. Like they brought in Reeves. Fox has been playing his game, so Trouba doesn't have to be that number one guy. Allows him to play more like that. So I don't know. I think those ones are fine. Like the Lomberg one. What do you think about that one in the corner? Yeah, I think the Lomberg on McDonald one actually could have been a lot worse. Just because of how McDonald's body position was. Like, luckily for him, he did actually kind of pull up. Like, he kind of, like, he was, like, facing the boards with his, like, shoulder turned in. And then he actually kind of opened up a bit.
Yeah.
And I think if he did do that, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, because what ended up happening is Lomberg, the main, like, where his contact hit was right into the chest. But because it was such a big hit and because McDonald was a bit lower, the head went right into the shoulder area of Lomberg.
Yeah.
It looked like, anyways, a little bit.
Yeah, like right kind of on the chin almost, right? Like,
yeah.
But, like, that one, it's like he comes flying in on him there.
He comes in, like, making that hit. Like, he's flying in for, 20, 30 feet on that one.
Yeah, he's
not
committed.
He's not skating. He's not accelerating, I don't think, but...
Well, he comes from really far away.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a guy in a vulnerable spot. It's a charge for sure. And like McDonald, I think he like left on and was like he was fine after the game. Like, I don't know, like fine might not be a right word, but he was awake and conscious and like full mobility and everything. But that was a really dangerous position to hit someone in. Like, compared to the Trouba ones, where it's like, that guy is, if you hit him, like, that could be like a backbreaker. Like, that's, if he didn't turn around there, like, I don't know if Lomberg would have been able to hold up. Like, he was committed. He was coming in fast. So that's a more aggressive play, I think, than the Trouba ones, because Trouba's big, and so he doesn't need to move as fast. It's like, it's physics, right? Like, but Lomberg's a little bit smaller and he's flying in there. That one looks a little bit more scary, and it's just lucky that McDonald actually turned his body to face him a bit at the last second, because you always see those plays where, I mean, how many times have we talked about it, where it's like, oh, that guy turned at the last second. He really made himself more vulnerable. In this one, it's like he was super vulnerable and he turned his body to make it less so. But if he didn't do that, it looked like Lomberg was going to hit him anyway.
Yeah,
because it's like a second before like he even contacts him, he turns. But Lomberg wasn't trying to hold up at all.
No.
That one's scarier, I think. I think it's like, by the rule book, maybe it's charge. But if he didn't turn around, that would have been pretty bad. And then, like we talked about, the Tanner Caro getting hit by Connolly. That one's just bullshit. Like, that's just
totally. That's just it's a bad play.
Yeah,
I think Connolly realized it, because he was pretty rattled with himself after the game, it sounds like.
Yeah, like, I could see why he was going for a hit on him, because it's like Radulov wraps the puck up the edge, and it looked like Caro might have been making like a tip play or something on it. Like, I mean, that happens all the time, but he just straight up didn't go for it, and Connolly just was so fixated on him that he didn't even see him not playing the puck.
Yeah,
and then made no effort to get out of the way of that player. So yeah, that one's scary, and I think just, I don't know, just because he didn't expect the hit at all, and he wasn't eligible at all, I think I agree with the suspension. So yeah, it's like, these are the types of hits that people love in playoffs, but people also on the ice are expecting those hits in playoffs, whereas during the regular season, I mean, like Rangers versus Blackhawks, like, who expects a huge hit like that? You might expect it like Rangers versus Islanders, so like players on the Islanders might be looking for Trouba to make that hit, but in a intra-conference game, like, or inter-conference game, they might not have their head on a swivel. But, like, if Trouba's out there, you gotta keep your head up, because he's gonna play the body. So unfortunate, though. It's a weird week that they all kind of happened all together. I guess the Caro one's a little further apart, but hopefully they're all okay. Especially Jujhar Khaira with his history of head injuries.
It sounds like the occasional update I saw somewhat recently from Derek King was he is okay. They're just taking it really, really slowly and carefully with him. Like, they're waiting until he's well above 100% ready to come back before they give him any game time.
Hopefully. I mean, that guy's career might be over. Like, if they have any setbacks. But yeah, I mean, like the Avalanche, like Jacob McDonald, I mean, Bowen Byram's been struggling with concussions. And then they had Connor Timmins that they traded out. That also had some huge injury issues. So I think they were also head related. I think he missed like a whole year of hockey or something, Connor Timmins. But like that's three young defensemen for their team that have had concussion issues. So I don't know. Like, do they bring in a guy like Ryan Reeves? Like,
it could be. I mean, they're in terms of team composition, Colorado is still trying to flesh out their depth. They seem to still be making a lot of changes year over year in terms of who they have in those bottom six forward spots. So that could really be the next step for them as they, similar to what Tampa Bay did that one year, bringing in like Coleman and Goodrow.
Yeah, I guess they've got Curtis McDermott, but I think
he's not really a regular.
Reeves. I think he fought Reeves the other day, but
yeah.
Like
you need the more modern day style of that type of player, like someone who's a regular in the lineup who's actually contributing more than just physicality.
Yeah, I think Tom Wilson just has the one fight this year, but Tom Wilson type.
Yeah, there you go. Someone he'd be great. He'd be great as a second line forward there.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
I don't know. The enforcer is never quite gone in hockey.
It's gone in the way it was used before. Yeah, it's just evolving into a different style. It's someone who's actually capable of being a regular, who's a skilled, talented player who's just physically overpowering and can hit, fight, whatever.
Yeah. Just hey, I mean, like, look at the Rangers, right? Like, they saw the whole situation go down last season, bringing a guy like Reeves. If you're going to go after Panarin or not Buchnevich because he's not around anymore, but, you're going to go after our skill guys. We've got guys that can target your guys. So, like, it's that arms race mentality where it's like, you go after us, well, we've got our guys that we can do the same thing. So, do you want to play that game or no? Might be enough. So, yeah, I think there's still a place for it. So, who knows if teams will start bringing it back, or next time they play the Rangers, at least bring somebody up.
That wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate and review this episode and toss a follow or subscribe our way. For more content, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more hockey talk.